Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and hot rodders of all ages. We got a little time, so we're going to spend it on a tribute tee today. Once again, this is a Speedway kit that they offer. They do not sponsor me in any way, shape, or form. Just thought it was a cool kit, and I thought I'd go ahead and document my build series in case anybody was putting it together and had any questions on it. So today we're going to do the front suspension and the friction shocks. Sit back and enjoy. All right, folks, as you can see, this is all of our front suspension parts, friction shocks, radius rods, front spring, steering assembly, disc brakes. So let's go ahead and we'll start putting that together. We'll start off first by putting our front spring on. So this is pretty straightforward. It's got a, show this, it's got a pin here. It's got a hole in this front perch. Pin goes in a hole, locates it side to side, front to back. Spring hangers go on. Flat washers, nuts. 5/8 socket, deep well. All right, our next step is going to be a radius rod put on. So, you can see you can adjust your length of your radius rod by turning this in and out, and that gets your front axle squared. We're not worried about that yet. We will, but just not quite yet. (9/16) bolt, fine thread. (3/4) on this. And I gotta use a ratchet on that. Okay, so as you can see, we've got this one on for this side. We'll go ahead and move over to the other side and put it on. Well, maybe this one needs to be turned in a little bit. There we go. Okay, you can see got the radius arms on, the front spring. So now we'll go ahead and move to installing the front axle. Take a little Scotch-Brite, clean them up a little bit on there. Same one on this. All right, now we're ready to install the pins and everything on here. Clean them up just a little bit. All right, we got this Super Bell dropped axle that come with it. 4-inch drop on it. Might as well clean that up while we're at it. And this will all get taken apart, lubed up, cleaned up, lubed up, painted. Okay, we got this one started. Give it a few taps. Get that to go down all the way. Now we'll get a lineup bar for this other one. And the reason why this isn't lining up is, as you can see, this spring hanger is horizontal. That one's on a 45. So it's just a matter of getting everything in the correct place. Moving it around back and forth a little. So there we go. There we go. Just needs a little persuasion sometimes. That one just about dropped all the way in. So, a couple little love taps. And there you go. Got a beveled washer that goes on the nut. That goes on the bottom side. Sucks up into the hairpin, or the radius rod rather. All right, so I have the spindle and brake assembly. I went ahead and assembled it here on the bench just so I know exactly what's going on and everything. You know, you can get your grease zerts really good. Just got to tighten them up and install them. It comes with this 37 to 41 Ford Kingpin installation kit, instructions and everything. Explains this bearing. It also tells you about these shims that'll go in here after you put it in on the axle and everything. So read these instructions. They're very good. Tells you how to do it step by step, and you won't have no problems. So I just wanted to point that out. That comes with the kit. I left these bolts loose only because I know I'm going to take them back apart. I just wanted to see how everything fit together. One thing I would recommend, Napa has a different bolt that goes in here that holds the caliper on. It's a lot shorter, looks a lot nicer. This is kind of, in my opinion, sticks out. It's pretty ugly looking. So acts the same way. I'll get a part number for that shortly. and show the difference in that when we all go back together with it final. So other than that, we're going to take the caliper off. And once again, I like using this little 1/4-inch drive. It doesn't have a lot of power, so a whole lot less chance of stripping anything out. Not saying it can't be done. Here's your caliper off. Let's see. Move this stuff out of the way right quick. Give me a little room to work again. And like I said, this is just a mock-up. So when we do go back together, you know, I've greased these bearings a little bit once. They've been sitting for a while. I'll go ahead and grease them again just so that everything's good. Now, if you want, so you don't forget, you know, you can put an index mark on there that tells you that lines up, and you know everything lines up from there. You can do it without a line-up mark like that, but remember, these bolt holes will line up. Since it's a 4-bolt pattern, they'll line up anywhere. It just saves you a little headache on down the road. So in case you get the parts on and you got the caliper in the wrong position, you know where to go from there. So as you can see, it's got the felt on it there, dust cover. This notch is where the pin goes through the axle and goes on it. So let's slide it over here and we'll show you how this all goes together. All right, let's talk about putting this on. So as you can see, here's the notch, and this pin draws into that. Let me get this by the camera where you can see. It'll draw into there, and that holds the kingpin from turning. So what I like to do is find out, okay, it's on that side there, so I'll just put a little index mark right on the top. As you can see, I can tell the top, that lines up there. It gets me really close. So, and this was already together once. It's the way it came from the factory. So we don't have to worry about the bushings fitting correctly and everything, because we already know they do. Now you got to get them 100% square or they won't go in. So. And your bearing, one thing about your bearing, you can see you got that. So I always put this down. Put this side down. That way the dirt doesn't settle on here and get in your bearing. So it slides in there. And with a little persuasion, a twisting and whatnot. And you know what else would help if you put it on correctly. So let's start that all over. Okay, so you can see how that goes in. Got my mark lined up. Take the kingpin locator. Drive her home. So there you go. One thing I like to do is I'll machine a stop for your steering, a longer, looks like god dang it, lug nut that'll go on here, and then it'll hit right here. It'll stick out and hit and allow it to stop. That'll be your stops, and that's something I machine up. I just like the looks of them, and they're functional. So now if I was going to put my shims in, I would measure right in this location right here and put my shims in now. I'm not worried about that right now because I'm going to take this all apart within the next day or two and get it ready, final assembly for paint. So we got our bracket for the brakes. Line up our marks there. Put a couple bolts in there to hold it. And there we have that. Okay, this is one of the problems we have on the kit. This is a steering bracket that comes with it. Unfortunately, it is not the one that is pictured on their website when you order this. So I've got to get a hold of them this week and find out if I'd got the wrong part or exactly what. But we're going to go ahead and set that on there right now, just because the ones on the website, instead of coming down, they came way up and went across here. This one will go down below. So that's something that's pretty important that we're going to take a look at and talk to Speedway and get the right part. So now it's on to the driver's side. Let me slide this back over here to the workbench and I'll show you a little issue we found on that. Okay, here's the driver's side all installed on the bench, and this is not the first time I've run into this. It's pretty common. It's a pet peeve of mine on punctuality, if that's the correct word for it or not. But you know, let's just say I got this all together, got it all nice and painted, and I'm getting ready to get it ready for the driving season, and I want to grease my front end. Now, if I can hold this up here, this is quite the challenge. You know, if I go to grease this, I'm going to show you right what I run into. See that top grease fitting? How in the world are you going to do that? So, you know, it's impossible without disassembling the whole front end and greasing that and then reassembling it. So one thing you want to do before you put this steering on, go ahead and replace this grease zert with a 45 up. It's going to save you a lot of aggravation in the future. You know, and I see that a lot on professionally built cars that are running the circuits and stuff. You know, make it to where you can get to the stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and disassemble this. It goes on the same way as the passenger side did, and I'll get that put on, then we'll start back up. Okay, folks, you can see I've got the driver's side on right now. I went ahead and pulled that little straight grease zert out, and I put a 45 one in. Now, when I did that, you can see it hits right there. So what I did, get this in camera, see that little U in there? I literally used just this file, this little hand file, put it in a vise, and did a little groove on there. So now with that being said, I can go ahead and install this. And it clears. Now I still won't be able to get a grease gun on there, but I've got one of those needles for doing grease zerts. I'll put that in my grease gun, and I can put that needle in there, and I can give this a couple shots of grease every year, and that doesn't look bad. It looks all, it flows. Where this one, you're going to have to disassemble everything just to get a couple shots of grease in there. Chances are you were never going to do that. So, just that little issue right there we've had, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and install the disc brakes on it. We'll put it on each side, install the pads and everything. I'm going to put the rotors on right now, and they're pretty simple and straightforward. I will grease everything up again once it is final assembly time. So there you go with that. And let me get the Now, another thing I don't like about the Speedway kits is usually they've got an anti-rattle clip that'll clip that in there. I've never had, I put probably a dozen of these calipers on different vehicles, and that clip has never been in the kit. So I'll run up to Napa or the other local parts stores and go ahead and get that anti-rattle clip. It just makes it a little easier to hold that brake shoe in. All right. Now I know you're asking, why are you putting this all together? And I'll get to that because I want to be able to run my brake hoses to where they look nice and they're in the proper position. So as you can see, we've got that one on. We'll move over to the passenger side and we'll put that one on right quick. Then we'll probably jack it up and set it on the axle for the weight and everything. So it gets a bearing, and it gets this spacer that they send with the kit, and then it gets the washer, castle nut, and then drop the cotter pin in. So And there we have the front end installed. Well, no, we don't. We got to put the steering brackets on yet. Drag link and the, linkage for the steering. Okay, as you can see, we've got the weight on the front suspension now. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to put the friction shocks on. Show you how they go on. Once again, they came already installed. I've taken them off for paint. We're going to put those on and show you that. So as you can see, we've got the weight on the front suspension now. We got the suspension loaded with the weight. So we're going to go ahead and put the friction shocks on. We'll try the steering linkage on. I'm not 100% sure that that's going to work with those steering arms that are with this. Like I said, I'll have to get a hold of Speedway and find out what the scoop is on that. But let's go ahead and put the friction shocks on. Zoom in here and get the camera set. These were already on it once. They came installed on the kit. Took it off for paint, like I'd said earlier, and decided I need to get everything ready before we paint it. So on these friction shocks, you got it's like a brake pad disc on there. So that goes on. Then you got the arm that goes on, another disc. You've got that one, outer disc, that's got a tab on it, and there's a slot that it goes in. Then you have the tensioner, washer, and your 3/8 nut on there. Now on this side, pretty simple. That hooks up to that arm there. And that'll go together like that. So let's see if I can find my 9/16 and install that. And what this does is, the tighter you make this to a point is how much that shock steadies everything. And it's a trial and error kind of deal. You know, I just went hand tight, and I probably went one flat on that. So, you know, that's a good starting point. And of course, that is the wrong size for that. Let me go get a 1/2-inch wrench. I got one right here. Okay, and that's how the friction shocks go on. So I'll go ahead and do the driver's side. You know, it goes on the same way.